And finally, we come to the last strategy I'm going to share with you in this course on classroom management. And this one is on the stopwatch system. It's a very effective tool, strategy that I've used so many years in the different classes I've handled, and it always worked. Remember the principle we talked about before: do not eat up academic time in order to discipline. And then the other principle I mentioned: you stand a better chance of getting the students to do what you want them to do when they are working to get a reward than to avoid a punishment. And this is that strategy that makes use of those two principles. And here's how it goes. Normally, I would have 50 minutes per period in the schools where I taught in. And so at the start of every month, I would come to the class and tell the class, okay, class, I have here the stopwatch, and it says 50 minutes. You have 50 minutes of reward as of now. But remember, every time somebody in the class chooses to break any of my rules, I would have to click the clock and it starts counting down and you lose seconds from the reward clock. Okay? So, similar to the check system that we used earlier or that we discussed earlier, this time around, instead of calmly picking the chalk or the whiteboard marker to write the name of the student on the board, I would click the clock. So let's give an example of what I gave earlier. I'm giving a class on English subject-verb agreement. Class, if the subject is singular, the verb should be singular. If the subject is plural, the verb should be plural. And then I notice John talking to Joey. I don't get angry. I do not stop lecturing. I just calmly pick up the clock and click on it. John and Joey will see that. And the whole class, in fact, will see that. And you know what happens? The whole class will look at John and Joey and tell them, John, Joey, stop talking. The clock, the clock. I click it and it starts counting down. They start losing seconds from the reward. And I will only stop it when I see that John and Joey will show me that they are sorry and that they will not talk anymore. And so the class just lost around 5, 6, 7 seconds because they chose to break one of my rules. And then I continue lecturing. Sometimes there are subjects that are always singular, like someone, somebody, something. And then I notice another pair of students talking with each other. I don't get angry. I don't get mad. I don't even have to say anything about it. I just calmly pick up the clock and click on it again. This time, again, the students will look at those two students talking and they will keep quiet, the clock, the clock. And then when those two students show me that they are now going to listen and that they will not talk anymore, I stop the clock. The class just lost another 5 seconds from the rewards clock. And it goes on like that for the rest of the month. By the end of the month, I will tell them, okay, class, there are now, 42 minutes left in the clock. You deserve 42 minutes of reward. And then I give a menu of rewards for the class officers to choose from with the approval or the agreement of the whole class. It can be a 42 minutes. We will have 42 minutes of video. We're going to watch a movie related to the lesson that we're discussing. 42 minutes of quiz bee. I'm going to split them up into groups and we're going to have a quiz bee and the questions will come from the lessons we discussed for that month. 42 minutes of free time where they can read books, they can read comics, they can read whatever they want. 42 minutes of free time in one of our periods in the coming month. Or 42 minutes, I don't even hesitate to add in the menu. 42 minutes of funny videos, nothing to do with a lesson, but just for the class to have a grand time, a great time, laughing together. Why? Because for the whole month, I never had to stop teaching. We are even maybe ahead of the schedule because we were able to cover everything we needed to cover because I never had to stop to discipline. All I had to do was to raise the clock and click it. It works. It works. You stand a better chance of getting the students to do what you want them to do if they are all working together to get a reward than to avoid a punishment. Here's a fantastic use of the stopwatch system that I saw in the years that I used it. You ever had sometimes a class that came after PE time? When you enter the classroom and the room is messy, the chairs are disarranged, and there's trash on the floor. Sometimes you enter and you see socks on the floor or shirts on the floor. An inefficient teacher, an ineffective teacher, without any strategy, what does he or she do? He enters a classroom and starts shouting, screaming, and yelling because the students are noisy, having come from PE class, and some of them may be slow in moving, in preparing for the next class. Not me. That's when the stopwatch system becomes very useful. I tell the class, I'm not going to start the class unless I see the room orderly, the rows arranged, no trash on the floor, and you are standing by your desk ready to begin the class. If I don't see that class that way, then we are not ready to begin the class. So I enter the classroom and it's messy. The room is in disarray, the rows are disarranged. I don't shout, I don't scream, I don't yell. I just calmly raise the clock and click it. You know what happens when you do that? Students start shouting, "Hey, fix the room, the clock, the clock." And I tell you, in a matter of 15, 20, or at most 30 seconds, for some reason, for some magical reason, they're able to put the room in order. The rows arranged, no trash on the floor, and they would be standing by their desk ready to begin the class. And yet, I didn't even have to open my mouth. I just calmly raise the clock and click it. It works. But you have to offer the students something they want as a class to be able to get as a reward. And then you will have to consistently implement the rules of the stopwatch system according to how you described it and according to how you agreed with the students on it from the very beginning of the school year. This is a very effective strategy to get the students do what you want them to do without you ever having to resort to shouting, screaming, or yelling, or without you even having to say anything.